Tonight we have Donald Flanagan from Dunmore. John has been a member of the Society for years and has given us talks before. He has part in the atlas of the Great Irish Famine. He had a part, some were part together in that as well. And he's just back from talks in America. He's given 3 talks in America, so he's back now to talk to us tonight. So I'll hand you over to John and he'll explain everything else himself. So thank you very much, Donald Flanagan. Thank you.
Right, just to thank Kate for inviting me to talk to you tonight. Thank you very much indeed. So I'm dealing now with the Peter Robinson settlement in Canada, and those of you who know me, I've tried to find some Dunmore connection and build on it. There is a Dunmore connection in this, believe it or not. Okay, so the historical context for this, Ireland 1800 to 1820, Napoleonic Wars had finished. The Napoleonic Wars, the troops had to be fed, horses had to be provided. So there was, I'm supposed not to walk around with it. There was demand for agricultural produce and the farmers were doing very, very well. When the war ended, that type of economic growth collapsed. So income for farmers collapses. You had the enclosure of the common lands. The land that had been open and cattle roaming and so on, that was enclosed. You had the rent increases. You had the concentration on cattle rather than tillage. And of course, cattle need more land. Famine, and particularly severe in 1821, but there were numerous famines. We talked about the Great Famine of the 1840s, but there were famine after famine after famine. So there was a very severe one in 1821. Agrarian agitation. Captain Rock, the Rockites, the White Boys, they have various names all over the place. And these were people that, in effect, took the law into their own hands and attacked houses, people, cattle, so on. Tithes. Up to that particular time, the tithe could be paid to the Protestant church. You could give them corn, you could give them straw, or you could give them cork or whatever. But they were trying to standardize them. So again, there was agitation about that. In the Blackwater Valley, 1822-23, there were 285 outrages. Reported burnings, attacks, murders, hocking and slaughter of cattle. The slaughter of cattle and again cutting here, cutting the backs of their legs, the hocking of cattle. So there were at least 285 reported incidents in that space of time, 1822-23. They left the tithe corn of the field to be collected. The Protestant minister was entitled to a tenth. But the law didn't say that you had to cut it and give it to him. So they didn't not let it there for him, they just left it there for him. If he wanted it, he could come and cut it. Of course that didn't work. That didn't suit him. So that's a form of agitation also. From April to July 1823, 43 houses and 14 out offices destroyed. Now this is only the Blackwater Valley. 43 houses destroyed and 14 farm buildings and farm out offices destroyed. In 1822, the Rockites, or the White Boys, or the Rocks, whatever you want to call them, they murdered 93 people. Just in that 1 year. There were 10 policemen killed. So that gives you an idea now of what's happening in the Blackwater Valley in 1822-23. Can you imagine the turmoil and the slaughter that was taking place? Okay? At least 6 informers were murdered. Okay? Any questions at any time you can Just ask if anybody wants that before I move on to another slide. The response of the authorities. The Dublin Castle St. John selected police officers, and they were called the Peace Preservation Force. Okay? Troops, up to 25,000 troops brought in from England and Scotland. At the peak, about 25,000. The yeomanry, local Protestant force, car triangles, again to try and quell the disturbances taking place there. The mobilization of army pensioners, those who had returned from the Napoleonic Wars, they were mobilized, again to try and contain the situation. And you must remember all the incidents that had taken place. Civil liberties were suspended. No trial by jury. They were caught, that was it. No jury, just that. Trial. Suspension of that. Strict curfew from sunrise to sunset. If you were caught out at night, automatic transportation. In the first year, 1,500 brought to trial and 200 were transported to Australia, 1822. In total, 4,000 arrested and 400 transported. So that was the answer that the authorities there, they arrested and they transported. And they hanged convicted rockers. Okay? So that was the response. That is the insurrection. Okay? Canada, 1800, 1820. There were vast areas not explored. Everything out west, virtually west of what we would call Toronto now, was called Prince Rupert. Unknown territory, unexplored. The French had been there for quite a while, but the British had not explored. There was no agreement on the border between the US and what we now know as Canada. In 1817, they agreed on the 49th parallel. But again, the British demanded what we call now Ohio and Montana and those places, those districts. But again, there was no agreement, and they agreed again in 1846. So this is just to say that the whole place is unexplored, bit of turmoil. Okay. Quebec, the province that we know of Quebec, at that particular time was Upper Canada and Lower Canada. And Upper Canada was nearer the mouth of the St. Lawrence. Lower Canada was down towards the Great Lakes. Okay? After the US Revolution, when the British were driven out of America, what we now know as the New England states, the Loyalists moved north. Those that did not want to remain in the new American country moved north. So you had an influx. Not only had you the French in Quebec, but you now had Royalists moving north. And as the Royalists moved north, you had the French moving south. And eventually we know they settled up in, a lot of them settled in Louisiana, and we know there was Cajuns or Arcadians or so on. But a lot of them settled on the coast, on the east coast of America. Okay? So that, again, this is just telling you that there's a lot of movement of people, north and south. America, expansion, raids in what we now know as Canada. And there you had a lot of English and Scottish settlers. So basically that was the situation in the 1820s. So we had the turmoil in the Blackwater Valley, and we have this as regards Canada. Nothing really, the lines of districts or anything like that are not finely drawn. Peter Robinson, the guy we were talking about, born 1785, died 1848. He was born in New Brunswick. Now, New Brunswick was a very, very French area, but the British just drove the French out. A lot of killing of the British, of the French, they're actually not slaughtered. He was a militia officer. In 1812, he raised a rifle company to attack Detroit. And in 1813, he surrendered the town of York to the Americans. Again, that shows the fluid movement. He attacked Detroit, which is in present-day America, and then we have, at a later stage, he surrendered York to the Americans. Again, movement of troops across the so-called border. He continued to buy lots and lots of plots of land, many enterprises, an inn, a schooner, a distillery, farms, fur trading, you name it. He was elected to the House of Assembly for York, which is present-day Toronto, in 1816. In 1822, he visited England for the first time. He met. He was introduced as a backwoods settlement expert to Robert Wilmot Horton, the new Under-Secretary of State for the colonies. Now again, you must remember, from the point of view of the British and the Under-Secretary, there's a lot, again, of incursions by the Americans, movement by the Canadians, South and so on. So you need to get people out there, really, that's what the scheme is. He had a scheme to bring peace and prosperity to Ireland through the sponsored emigration of thousands of dispossessed tenant farmers. Wilmot Horton, that's what he wanted to do. Get Canada, as we now know it, get people in there and solve the problems of Ireland. He had the government's consent to a small scheme for sending emigrants to Upper Canada. That's the Great Lake District again, now, that's what we're talking about. And he selected the Blackwater River Valley for his scheme. Having spoken to Wilmot Horton, Robinson and himself agreed that the Blackwater Valley was the area that they should focus on. There was no tradition of emigration from there. The Insurrection Act was in force, and he appointed Robinson as his superintendent. On the 18th of May, Robinson left Liverpool and he arrived in Fermoy on the 20th of May 1823. And he made Fermoy his place of residence. And the various lords, Lord Ennismore, Lord Kingston, and Lord Doneraile, Mr. Beecher, Mr. Jepson, Dr. Woodward, they were all anxious for the success of the scheme of getting farmers out of the Blackwater Valley. They visited Fermoy, Mitchelstown, Doneraile, Charleville, Newmarket, Cantor, Mallow, and they handed out copies of the terms of emigration. They visited the villages within that area, again along the Blackwater. Spoke to the priests, and the priests, some of them, read the terms of emigration from the pulpits. The magistrates took the names of those wishing to emigrate. So they asked for volunteers, and the magistrate took the name. And not only did he take the name, but he took the name of the man's wife and the children. Okay, so he took the names. Robinson stayed in Ireland, he met the people, answered the questions that they had. He selected paupers, reduced farmers, that's the term that they use. Now, if you have a farmer that's very, very good at doing his work and producing and paying his rent and getting a good living from the land, you don't want to take him. But if you have a farmer who is a pauper, who is struggling, then obviously he is a burden on the landlord, so he's the guy that goes. That's the reason that for taking reduced farmers, those who had no capital. By the end of June, he had distributed 600 leaflets. Problem was, in the time of the insurrection, literally 600 or more had been transported to Australia. And the tenant farmers, the reduced farmers, or the paupers, whatever you want to call it, they said this is another name for transportation. They're just giving transportation another name, so we don't want to go. But by the 1st of July, 460, he had 460 people who were prepared to go to Canada. And the next day he selected 111 more. So now he had 500 plus to go to Canada. On the 8th of July, 2 ships, the Heavy and the Strathspey, left Cork Harbour, 8th of July. Each ship had 2 medical officers, ample supplies of food. And again, it took a while for the people, the Irish farmers, the Irish people, to get used to the diet. They had been used to potatoes. And they got cocoa, they got cheese, they got sugar. And for the first number of days, they actually threw the food overboard. They just couldn't cope with taking it. But again, they persevered and they survived. Okay? They reached Quebec on the 2nd. Now, the 8th of July, they left Cork, and the 2nd of September. It's very good going, to think about it. 8th of July, and they're in Quebec on the 2nd of September. Virtually exceeded the month of August, a few weeks in July. On the 22nd, they reached their designated lands. So within 3 weeks, they're on the land that had been assigned to them by Robinson. But there was a slight problem. Robinson discovered that quite a number of people had come from Glasgow because there was another scheme to get Scots out there. So quite a number had come from Scotland, and half the land, half the lots had been settled by Scots from Glasgow. But he located new lots and settled 182 families. Now every family that was settled got 100 acres. There was a clearance, so the land is cleared, a bit of it is cleared, and then it's up to yourself. We'll come to that in a minute. Each family had a log house, 20 by 12. That was built for them. They didn't have to build it. It was 12 foot at the front, 12 foot high at the front, and it was sloping to 4 feet at the back. So there was a sloping shed at the back of the house. Quite a big house, okay? And again, when you consider what they'd come from, this house, this log house is built on. Each family got a cow, an auger, an axe, a handsaw, a hammer, 100 nails, 2 gimlets. How many know what a gimlet is? Good man, Liz. Will you explain it for me? It's for boring holes, and it has a long handle and it's twisted around. Yeah. 3 hoes, 1 kettle, 1 iron pot, 5 bushels of seed, potatoes, and 8 quarts of Indian cork. Everyone that settled the land got that. Again, now they got a cow and so on. The total cost of the British Exchequer was 30,000 in 1823. Can you imagine? I don't know what cost that today to be millions. All right? Any questions on that one? You clear enough on that?
Who built the houses?
Sorry?
Who built the houses?
Robinson had them built before they went out. He had the land, and he actually built a massive big house for himself. And if he couldn't have a house ready for a tenant farmer, the tenant farmer, they stayed in his house. Right? Okay. But quite a number of the houses have been built. As it said there, some of the lots were taken already by the Scots, so we got lots for others, and get people building the houses for them.
That's the start of winter, isn't it?
Sorry?
That's the start of winter, how they're
I can't hear you.
It's the start of winter, and it's going to be snow in Canada. How did they survive the winter?
Well, they did survive. They did. We'll be dealing with more in a moment, which is okay. So the cost of the exchequer was 30,000.
And did any of the priests travel with them?
No, no. Trades, yes, shoemaker, carpenter, whatever. I'll be coming to more detail in a minute. Very, very clever. Robinson asked that letters be sent back home to the Blackwater Valley. By the 20th of February 1824, letters were sent back to Ireland, outlining and detailing their lives in Canada and inviting family and friends to join them. Very, very clever move. Okay? Now, those that couldn't read or write, he got people to write. And the letters were sent back to the Blackwater. He arrived in Cork again on the 12th of April in 1825. This is the second tranche now, 1825. The first one was 1823. So he's back in Cork on the 12th of April. By the 23rd of May, very short time, he had to select 2,000 who were anxious to emigrate. 50,000 applied. Right? He almost failed to get enough for the 2 ships, the first lot. But now he had 50,000 applicants. Okay? And again, think of the letter that had come back to the Blackwater Valley the first winter that they had spent there. After approval, each head of the family was issued with a certificate. Now, the first time round, the magistrate took the names. He took my name, my wife's name, and the children's names. Okay? So I didn't want to go. So you went. But I had 3 daughters and 2 sons. And you had 3 sons and 2 daughters. So they had to cross-dress. For your family to go on my place. Okay? They had to cross-dress. But he was he knew that was happening. So he decided this should not happen. Okay? He kept a duplicate of every certificate that he issued. And as each family boarded, he checked their certificates. There's a certificate. Can you read it?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Ireland, the 22nd of April 1825, Charleville, County of Cork. These are to certify that the under-mentioned persons of the parish of Newtown in the County of Cork, Ireland, have been received by me and as emigrant settlers to be conveyed to Upper Canada and placed upon their lands at the expense of His Majesty's government. Daniel Donoghue, 48, head of family, a reduced farmer. Elizabeth, his wife, 46, then the children. Okay? Now, you would not take in the first round out to Canada, you had to be 48 years of age or younger. Didn't take anybody over 48 years of age, except one exception. A father whose wife had died, and he had 5 or 6 strong sons. So rather than leave the father on his own, he allowed the father to go. He was 60-something, and he had very, very strong sons. Okay? So, when you presented yourself at the ship, he had a duplicate of this. So he was able to double check that the people who had indicated that they wanted to go were actually the people who were going. Again, we can see the term reduced farmer. Okay? So from the 10th of May to the 23rd, 9 ships sailed from Cove with 2,000 people, 385 men, 325 women, 587 girls, and 727 boys. Okay? From the 16th of June to the 6th of July, all arrived at their destination. Again, fairly fast move across the Atlantic. 15 died in transit and 15 infants were born. Again, they were almost with bed and breakfast, just full board. It was almost like a cruise, I suppose they would have considered that. They were very, very well catered for with surgeons and everything on board. Problem. Robinson did not travel with them. He went on to London, then to New York, and reached Niagara on the 28th of July. So they got there on the 16th of June. And he gets to Niagara on the 28th of July, 5 or 6 weeks later. Now he is the organizer, the coordinator, the guy behind everything. The first time, they saw how quickly they had been settled. So now they have to wait for Robinson. When he got there on the 28th of July, he went to view the lands that had been allotted, and on the 11th of August, he met the emigrants. So they got there on the 16th, well, they said the 16th of June and the 6th of July, so we'll say the 6th of July. 6th of July, 6th of August, a full month, they are waiting for Robinson. Now the St. Lawrence River. It is tidal to Quebec City. Then you can see there going down to Montreal. Montreal to Kingston, you can see Toronto, and so on. So the ships, the sea-going ships were able to get as far as Quebec. Okay? I'll be dealing with this, but in Quebec they had to disembark and go on a plank into a smaller ship. And each one walked the plank into the next ship. And that ship took them down to Montreal. And in Montreal, there were the Lac Rapids. And they could not go beyond that. So they had to go on land, walk through the, whatever size Montreal was at the time, walk through Montreal to the other side, wagons to take their luggage and everything else, all provisions and everything, to the other side of Montreal, and then sail down the St. Lawrence to Kingston. Okay, so that's just to say that it is tidal to Quebec, different ship from Quebec to Montreal, again a different mode of transport down to Kingston. The French had forts on the islands in the estuary. The French, obviously Quebec, a major French settlement, but they still had islands in the St. Lawrence. And they still had cannon, guns that fired cannon on those islands. And some of the ships, of these 9 ships, the French tried to bomb them out of the water. They didn't succeed, just to say that. The river proper being tidal was French-Canadian territory, which was controlled by the British, but it was French-Canadian, I don't mean territory. They could sail in and out, French and Canadian ships, French and English ships. It was 300 miles to Quebec from the map. From the mouth of St. Lawrence, Quebec was 300 miles. And there were French and British navies docked there. Yeah. Okay. As I said to you, in Quebec, they disembarked from their ships and walked on a plank into waiting steamboats. A 150-mile trip to Montreal took 2 days. And there was whole, they can see the preparation that had to go into all of this now. You had to have steamboats ready to take them from Quebec to Montreal. And that journey took 2 days. The Lac Rapids impeded further progress there. And they, as I said, all their belongings were put into wagons and they walked through the city to another dock. Another steamboat to Kingston, Lake Ontario, and Kingston is the guardian of the Canadian entrance to the Great Lakes. We saw that on the map. Okay, any questions there? Are you all right? 2 months waiting for Peter Robinson, 100 degrees in the shade, 300 of them got fever, and 33 died. They were there on the banks, virtually on Kingston, waiting for him. We saw Coburg on the map. Kingston to Coburg is 93 miles. And they went there by steamboat. Coburg to the Rice Lakes, we can see this in the map in a moment. The boats had to be hauled overland for 12 miles. From Coburg, overland, they hauled boats to the Rice Lakes. They sailed 3 miles across Rice Lakes, and then the river to Scott's Plains was so low they had to construct a 60-foot scout and poled it for 24 miles to Scott's Plains. Okay? Now, the first 2 that went out, everything went smoothly, everything went perfectly. Robinson, as I said, wasn't there, so everything was thrown out, delayed. And they had to make 60 trips to bring all the settlers from Coburg. Back and forth and back and forth. And when, for instance, when they got to Rice Lakes, they were all camped there. Then they went back to the next lot, back and forth and back and forth. Okay? Now, the map again, just in the corner there. that name there. I'll just call it out, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Mrs. Auga. They were the First Nations of the original peoples that lived there. And they were settled around Rice Lakes. And here you have Coburg, and here you have Rice Lakes. And you can see the distance again. They had to go from Kingston to Coburg, Coburg to Rice Lakes. Rice Lakes. It is now called Peterborough, after Peter Robinson, but it was then known as Scots Plains. Okay? You can see Niagara Falls and all that. And of course, something I should say, the American border is very close. Okay, Rochester, New York, obviously. New Brunswick is up here. These are the states, Syracuse, New York. Niagara Falls is in Canada. Again, you can see the territorial boundary. So the states there, an open border, really. Okay. This is where they were going to. That gives you a better idea of it. Here are the various districts. Again, I'm just pronouncing them as I think they are. Otonabee, Asphodel, Dummer, Douro, Smith, Ennismore, Emily, Ups, and so on. And you can see there Peterborough, and underneath it is Scots Plains. Okay? And if you think of the roads of Tralee, virtually every time there is a girl from Peterborough in Canada. Right? Maybe that's the reason why, I don't know. There is. Okay. So case histories, we have to give it a Dunmore connection. William Hayner and John Gibbs are the Esquire are the landlords, and they recommended the Regan family to go to Canada. Timothy Regan is a reduced farmer, 35, his wife, Catherine, children. Okay? Husband, wife, 4 children. The surgeon's reports. Timothy Regan came on board sickly, took fever the 2nd of June, put on the sick list on the 22nd of June. His family had been in moderate circumstances, but now starving and appeared broken by distress. He was sent to the Emigrant Hospital at Quebec, 7th of July, where he died a day or two later. That's the father. Catherine, age 32, married in her 8th month of pregnancy, put on sick list the 17th of June, 1825, while they were at sea. She died the 19th of July, 1825. She refused to leave her husband Timothy Regan during his illness. On the 21st, she consented to leave, and she and her children were put in an aft cabin with 2 sleeping berths. Now notice again how they're trying to take care of all these people. If you think of the convicts that were sent to Australia, they didn't get any of this privilege. On the 22nd of June, she went into labour at 6 a.m. A female child was born, the child buried at Kingston. She was sent with her family to the Emigrant Hospital in Quebec on the 7th of July. Well, no, am I going ahead? Yes. She and her children joined the emigrants at Lochine on the 16th of July 1825, her husband having died in the hospital. Her children report that she had nothing to eat but bread from time to time since she left Quebec and arrived at Lochine. At Lochine, she ate a good supper and breakfast the next morning, but became ill again and suffered from vomiting from the 18th of July 1825 until her death. Children. Mary Regan, age 10, put on the sick list, cured 24th of June. Nora, put on sick list, cured. Michael, put on sick list, cured. I don't want to be going through the whole detail, you can see it there yourselves. Sorry. Right. 2 boys, Ship's Master Peter Roach's report. 2 boys aged 16 and 6, 2 girls aged 13 and 10, very fine children, are left orphans. I left $8 belonging to them in Mr. Reed's charge. Their chest, by some mistake, has been left in Quebec. Whatever belongings they had were in Quebec. So that was the end of the Dunmore group. Lost. Okay? I've given this talk other places, so this is just Inniscarra, Shaheen and Magorney, their parishes out around Donaghmore. Daniel Foley and his wife and 6 children. John Foley, 18 months, put on sick list. He died on 26th of June. Crowding in the steamboat affected him badly, and it was Colthurst of Blarney who had been the landlord there. Healy Hutchinson's of Knocklofty in Tipperary, which would have tenants in Clogheen. John Callan and his wife, 7 children, reduced farmer, sent out by him. Edward Gilman and 8 children, himself a very good man, has a large family of daughters, and he would be the parish of Magorney, which is Coultry. So they're just areas around here. Now, the Ballygiblin riots. Okay? You know where Ballygiblin is? Anybody? Bottom, yeah. Now, you remember I said that the first contingent that went out, they got a cow. The second contingent, they got cows. But the Ulster Scots, the Ulstermen and the Scots did not get cows. Okay? So one day then, you can see it there, fighting broke out at Murphy's Falls, now called Carrollton Place, between some of the district's established Protestant settlers and a group of recently arrived Irish Catholic immigrants. Religious animosity, aggravated by earlier settlers' jealousy of increased assistance extended to newcomers, provided the background for the violence, which first erupted following a militia muster on the April 23rd. And the extended assistance was that the Irish got a cow each, and the other crowd didn't, and they had to fight over that. While arresting some of the Irish, an armed force of settlers led by the district's deputy sheriff on Sunday, May the 2nd, attacked Shipman's Mills, where the immigrants had gathered. One immigrant was killed, several wounded, and a few buildings destroyed or damaged. Peace was restored through the efforts of a government agent, Cardinal James Fitzgibbon. So the old Catholic and Protestant fight continued there, and I think it's unusual that, based on Vodevil, this is a plaque actually in this area, and the Ballygiblin riots, all from the cow, all because of the cow. Now these are returns. Just the first line is missing. So the first group settled in Newcastle district. 655 men, 530 women, children. A total of 1,859 settled in Newcastle. Again, the next district is Bathurst, 67. Remained with friends in Lower Canada, 30. Absent at Coburg, 5. Is that right, or have we gone 2? Died at sea and in Canada. All right, that's the one there. 51 men died, 18 women, 76 children, 145 died. Some, as we had on the voyage, 15, but then while they were waiting to be taken inland, quite a number of them died in the encampment. Embarked at the Cove of Cork, 2024. Buried at born at sea, 15, in Canada, 54. Joined in Canada, 15. So of the 2024 that embarked in Cork, they had increased to 2,108. Some people had joined up with the group. Okay. Now, on the left-hand side, which we can't see, we have the names of the various townships where they settled. Okay, and the number of locations. You can see the number of acres cleared. We take the first one there, across 245 acres cleared. And in that year, they raised 8,251 bushels of potatoes, turnips 4,000. Indian corn, 1,000 plus, bushel wheat, 80 and 3/4, maple sugar, 1,159. They had purchased oxen, cows, and hogs. Okay? So that's within 1 year effectively. And you can go down through the whole lot there. Any questions there? I think the chart speaks for itself anyway. Okay. Lord Ennismore, and these are some of the townlands that we have. You'll recognise some of the places anyway. Ballyhooly, Carricktool, Condramore, Kilworth, Fannyheath, Monamin, Rocklands, Castlelyons, Litter, Carrickdown, Cool, Kilkin, Listowel, and Doomsday and Cliff. So, tenants from all of those townlands, maybe one from one townland or more. I haven't gone in, I have the detail, but I don't want to put it up. I don't mean it means there's enough up there, really, to say that all of these townlands, representatives from those townlands, settled in Canada. Captain Roberts, Charleville, Churchtown, Adair, Croom, Kilfinnan, Kilbolan, Askeaton, Lough Limerick there, Newcastle, Nantinant, Colemanswell, Brinny, Kilkeely, Newtown, and St. Michael's Limerick. So Captain Roberts again, all those townlands that sent something. Lord Doneraile, Churchtown, Doneraile, Donaghskey, and you'll see there Donaghskey has appeared again because Lord Doneraile and Lord Ennismore both had tenants in that townland. Bodevant, Adair and Kilbrin. The Earl of Kingston, Ballyclaw, Templetinny, Kilbeheny, Mitchelstown, Brigoyne, Clogheen and Drungara. He's Earl of Kingston is Lord Mitchelstown. Lord Mountcashel, Kilworth, Clonmel, Callan, Afane, Limerick, Castlelyons is misspelled, I'm sure you've noticed that anyway, and Dandenong. Beecher, Liscarroll, Kilmeen, Fremont, Kanturk, Knocktemple, Churchtown, Middleton, Castlemalloy, Ballyclaw, and Jepson, Rahan, Mallow, Ballyclaw, Mornavy, Killarney, and Kilshanny. Aldworth, Tully, Newmarket, and Shandrum, Ardagh, Liscarroll, Kilmeen. Counties other than Cork mentioned, where the tenants went from. Limerick, Tipperary, Kerry, Waterford, Clare, Wicklow, Kilkenny, and that's the end of that. All right? Okay, any questions? Then badly answered them. You're all struck down.
Was it regarded as a success?
Oh yes, definitely a success, a major success. If you think even between the 1823 and 1825, I mean 50,000 people applied for places in the second settlement. Yes?
Are the names of the people that went out available?
Yes. Every family and the ages of each person, like the Donamore one that I gave you, the Regans, for every family there is that. And there is a surgeon's report. If they had to be hospitalized, there's a surgeon's report on the families.
We can receive that.
Online. Online, yes. Okay. Peter Robinson Shipley's, that's it. Peter Robinson is the Peter Robinson scheme, and if you Google that, even if you Google that, Peter Robinson settlement in Canada, you'll get ship lists and you'll get reports and so on, surgeons' reports.
And does it give the addresses as well as the names?
It does. The townlands I gave you. It gives the townlands, and it gives the landlord or the lord, like Lord Ennismore or Lord Mountcashel. It gives the names of priests actually that recommended them. Okay. Yeah. I should mention that obviously Donamore is not in the valley of the Blackwater. It's far from it. I don't know how the Donamore Club got in there, but Peter Robinson himself took quite a number from Cape Clear and from Affadown, which is a parish outside Skibbereen. Yeah. Now, I can't talk to Peter Robinson to know why he did that, but he did, actually.
Because of the beachers. The beachers had land down there as well.
Maybe that's why, yeah.
And did he take any from Bandon too?
No, not from Bandon. They don't actually, in the Cape Clear and Affadown, he doesn't mention the beachers. It's just PR. He puts his own name on it, so I don't know, other than that, why they were selected. But you say the beachers, possibly.
Fame beacher had a little land.
Yeah.
That's not a complete list of townlands, is it?
Sorry?
That's not a complete list you gave us of townlands.
No.
Because
there's town land down right in Sale where there was a family left from there as well.
Yes.
That would be.
I mean, I picked
All
the.
right.
No, I just picked those that sent the most.
Right.
Like Lord Dennismore, and there may well be town lands left out from Lord
And you
Dennismore.
see here, what you call it, lesser farms, there were the lower class.
Reduced farmers is what they call them.
I thought that you actually had to be the opposite, that you had to prove that you were able to contribute to the country you were going into, that you were supposed to be able to.
Well, according to the literature that I have read,
Yeah.
they use it, and they're quite emphatic that they have to be paupers. That's the term they use.
Right. Yeah.
The second time Robertson came to Fermoy, and 50,000 volunteered.
Yes.
Okay? Why so many?
Because they saw the benefit of it. Because again, the letters had come back to say how they had progressed. You can see how they had bushels of wheat, they had cattle, they had potatoes, turnips, whatever.
There was no famine there at the time, was there?
In Canada, no.
No, in Ireland.
Ireland was in a continuous state of famine, effectively, because the subdivision of land,
In the early 20s.
living on acres or half an acre or whatever.
Okay.
It had to be a better life for them, didn't it?
Sorry?
It had to be a better life for them.
Yeah.
There was a Captain Jefferson in Mallow.
Yes.
Up to 20 years, at least. I bought a van and came back. Had to go down there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think he died.
I think his wife is a bit in the air.
Without knowing.
That I didn't mind, but
I think it's something.
they always traveled separately, but I think on one occasion they were team. Any other questions there?
Did the egg grow between the Scots and the Irish continue?
Does it continue to this day?
Ranges Celtic.
It even continued into the goldfields of Alaska, the Unionists and the National Patrols. And there were more orange lunches in Canada, I'd say, than in Northern Ireland.
Gaelic spoken language.
Gaelic would have been, the Irish would have been the spoken language of these, yes.
Would you have a Scots Gaelic?
Scots Gaelic, yes. Well, probably not from Glasgow. I don't know about that. You know?
And were these families very successful then?
But they seem to have been quite successful in the report in the first year.
Yeah.
You know?
But we don't hear many Canadians coming here and it's always the Americans who come here. But there's a lot of Irish people that live in Canada that don't have family here. I don't know why they don't.
I have a list in the car of all the landlords. I just picked the principal landlords that sent out more people than landlords.
Is there any criteria to 50,000 in terms of kind of through the landlord's discretion?
Through the landlords, and the landlords were asked to nominate. First time round, it was the magistrates that did, well, the landlords were there, but the magistrates did the listing. The second time round, he did the whole thing himself, and each person had to have a duplicate, so that you couldn't get somebody else to go on your place.
Actually, I was in Vermont one time.
Sorry?
I had the telephone directory. There's a good lot of Irish names in it at the moment.
In Canada?
Vermont.
What, in Vermont, all right, okay. There would be very much in Vermont from the building of the Erie Canal, I'd imagine, to canal work up there.
Can I ask if there was any prior settlement for Irish people?
Sorry?
Was there any prior settlement for Irish people before these two corrections?
In Canada?
Yeah.
Not that I can think of any.
So they were like the first ones out?
I would think
Yeah.
they'd be. Yes?
Just to put something in context there, you said that the scheme in the first emigration cost was it £30,000?
£30,000 sterling.
Yeah. I find it intriguing because when the British government was looking for a barracks in Middleton, they offered Marcus Lynch £20,000 in 1803 for his redundant woolen mill, which is now part of the old Middleton distillery. And later, when the Napoleonic Wars had ended, they sold that woolen mill to the Archbishop of Cashel for about £3,000 to no more than £4,000. So it was interesting that £30,000 was the sum that they spent on the first emigration to Canada. It's only half as much again as they spent on the barracks in Middleton.
Yes. I don't know how much the second lot of emigrants cost.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, there was some article on Shoots magazine there some time ago about some part of Canada, I can't think of the name. No. But there are more Irish there than anywhere else in the world. Don't you know?
I've been Newfoundland.
Newfoundland. Yeah, mostly from Waterford or that area. Some of those people have been there, but that a later groups went over.
No, they have been fishing from Waterford for maybe 100 years or more before.
I don't know. Yeah. And they settled there and there's a big Irish community there.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
It was way more expensive for the British government than the settlement to Australia. So
was it more expensive?
It must have been about more.
Well, if you think of the bed and board that they got on the ships out in Canada, I don't think they provided that luxury to them to Australia.
But I'm not talking about countries now, I'm talking people who were settled in Australia.
Oh yes.
Government or
I don't know the relative content.
Anything else? I'd like to thank John for